In the heart of bustling Lagos, where the streets hum with life and the air is thick with the pulse of the city, there lives a man whose name echoes from the grandest skyscrapers to the quietest corners of every village. Chief Obi, tall, dignified, and wrapped in a cloak of mystery, was a figure whose presence could turn the tides of fortune. His wealth was unimaginable, his businesses spread across continents, and his influence boundless. Yet, amidst all this grandeur, there was one thing that captivated the hearts of the people more than his success: his generosity. Every December, like clockwork, Chief Obi would leave behind the glittering lights of Lagos and return to his village. There, he would transform from a wealthy businessman into a humble benefactor, showering the poor with gifts, bags of rice, clothes, money, and food that seemed endless. The villagers would wait eagerly, hoping to catch a glimpse of their beloved chief, whose annual ritual had become a symbol of hope and prosperity. But, my people, though the gifts were plentiful, something strange lingered in the air. For every smile, there was a whisper. For every gift he gave, there was a question left unanswered. Chief Obi's success was beyond comprehension. How had a man from such humble beginnings risen so high, so quickly? His generosity, though unmatched, seemed to come with a shadow, one that the villagers could not quite place. Where does his wealth truly come from? The elders would murmur in hushed voices. What deals does he make in the dark, far from the eyes of the village? They had heard tales of his secretive ways, of closed-door meetings with mysterious figures, of an aura that felt more like an enigma than a man. The villagers, ever grateful yet ever curious, began to wonder, was there more to Chief Obi than met the eye? Could his gifts be tied to something darker? Something hidden beneath the surface, far beyond the reach of the common folk? And so, with every passing year, the mystery surrounding him grew, until one fateful December, when the secrets that had long been buried would finally come to light. In the heart of the sacred forest, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the wind carried the scent of old magic, Chief Obi had made a pact forged in shadows and sealed with a dark promise. The villagers, with their simple lives, knew little of this forest. It was a place untouched by time, where the land itself seemed to breathe, thick with the pulse of forgotten gods. Yet, Chief Obi knew its depth all too well. Many years ago, when he was still a young man with dreams larger than the stars, he had wandered into that very forest in search of greatness. Desperate, hungry for power, he stumbled upon an ancient being, an entity whose name was never spoken aloud. Its form was ever changing, its voice a deep, unearthly hum that resonated in the very bones of those who listened. This dark deity, with eyes that gleamed like burning embers, offered him something no man could refuse: wealth, power, and influence beyond measure. But in return, the deity demanded a price, one that seemed so small in comparison to the treasures it offered. The chief, in his youthful arrogance, agreed without hesitation, never once questioning the true cost of such a bargain. The deity had said,
"Take my gift, and you will rise above all others. Your name will be known across lands. But in exchange, you must give me something dear to you. I seek the souls of your people, their destinies, their glory, their very futures. They will live and die at your command, but their fate will no longer belong to them."
And so, Chief Obi, driven by his insatiable hunger for greatness, sealed the deal. The villagers, their lives and hopes now entwined with his fate, became nothing more than pawns in a game he could not yet fully understand. With every gift he gave, every gesture of kindness, the dark deity grew stronger, feeding on the very souls of the villagers, trapping their destinies in an unbreakable web. As Chief Obi returned each year to his village, bringing gifts and joy, the villagers remained blissfully unaware of the dark price they had paid. They celebrated his generosity, their hearts swelling with gratitude, while the chief's wealth and power grew in direct proportion to their suffering. Their dreams, their aspirations, were no longer their own. They were bound to his success, tied to his rise. The chief's life was one of luxury, but it was also one of unrelenting darkness. His success was no longer his own, it had been borrowed, stolen from the very souls of those who had trusted him. And though he appeared to be the benefactor, the savior, in truth, he was the architect of their doom. The villagers had no idea that with every feast, with every coin he placed in their hands, he was offering them something far more sinister than mere charity. Their glory, their hopes, their futures, they had all been sacrificed to a being older than time itself. And now, as the years passed, the debt was growing, the cost of his wealth rising higher and higher. Something would have to give. Something was about to break, and when it did, the villagers would finally learn the true cost of Chief Obi's hidden pact. Every year, when Chief Obi returned to the village, the air would buzz with excitement. The women would dress in their finest clothes, and the children would gather at the village square, their faces bright with hope. Chief Obi's caravan would roll in, laden with bags of rice, baskets of clothes, shimmering coins, and sweets that glisten like the sun. The village, in all its simplicity, would celebrate, unaware of the sinister truth behind the chief's gifts. As the villagers gathered to receive their share, their hearts filled with joy and gratitude, they had no inkling of the dark process at work. For each gift Chief Obi handed out, there was a hidden cost. The food, the money, the blessings, they weren't just tokens of charity. They were traps woven into the very fabric of the chief's offerings. When a villager took the food, a strange heaviness settled in their chest, though they couldn't name it. The rice, once cooked, tasted sweeter than any they had ever eaten, but with each bite, they felt a subtle drain, a faint pulling at their strength. The money, once accepted, would burn a small hole in their pocket, as though the wealth was never truly theirs to keep. And the clothes, so soft and new, seemed to weigh them down, pulling them into a haze of tiredness and lethargy. Chief Obi's gifts were not mere tokens of kindness. They were laced with the power of the dark deity he had bargained with long ago. As the villagers consumed the food or spent the money, their very life force, their dreams, their potential, everything that made them who they were, was siphoned away, piece by piece. Their hopes, their ambitions, their futures, each moment of joy was tainted, drawing them deeper into the chief's web. At first, the effects were barely noticeable. A little tiredness here, a fleeting headache there. But over time, something changed in the villagers. The elders, once wise and full of stories, began to forget their past. The children, once full of boundless energy, became more withdrawn, their eyes dimming with each passing year. And the youth, once eager to build their futures, grew restless, unable to find the drive or inspiration they once had. The villagers, in their ignorance, thought nothing of it. They believed Chief Obi was a blessing, sent by the gods to ease their burdens. They spoke of him with reverence, calling him the savior of the village, grateful for the gifts that seemed to flow like a river from his hands. How could such a generous man, one who had brought them so much, ever harm them? They could not see that the very things they cherished, the food, the money, the gifts, were the poison that slowly drained the life from their community. Chief Obi's generosity was a lie, a well-crafted illusion that hid the dark truth. Each gift was a strand in a chain that kept the villagers bound to a fate they had no control over. As the years passed, the once vibrant village, full of laughter and ambition, began to wither. Its people were no longer the dreamers and doers they once were. They were shells, walking through life, their destinies stolen without even realizing it. And through it all, Chief Obi smiled, his wealth growing, his power strengthening, his dark pact with the deity thriving. But deep within him, a part of him knew the cost was rising. The balance was shifting. And soon, the village would begin to ask questions. They would begin to wonder what was really happening to them. In the quietest corner of the village, under a small, crumbling roof patched together with straw and hope, lived Chika, a young widow with a heart stronger than her circumstances. Her husband had passed away during a harsh harvest season, leaving her with little more than memories and the weight of survival. But Chika was no stranger to struggle. She worked tirelessly, pounding yam for others, fetching water from the distant stream, and trading whatever little she could at the village market. Yet, amidst her hardship, life had given her a precious gift, her newborn son, Chima. Tiny and fragile, with eyes as bright as the morning sun, he was the center of her world. Chika would sit for hours, cradling him and whispering her dreams into the soft curls on his head. "You will grow strong, my son," she would murmur. "You will become a great man. You will do what I could not." Her love for Chima was boundless, and though the days were hard, she believed the future held promise for her child. If only she could find a way to ensure his safety, to provide him with the life he deserved. News of Chika's situation eventually reached Chief Obi, who saw in her vulnerability an opportunity to further his dark pact. He arrived at her doorstep one bright morning, flanked by his aides and carrying a bag of food, coins, and gifts. His presence, as always, brought a mixture of awe and gratitude. "Chika," he said, his deep voice filled with faint kindness, "I have heard of your struggles. A young widow, so hardworking, yet so burdened. It is not right. I am here to help you." Tears filled Chika's eyes as she looked at the gifts laid before her. Rice, yams, a bag of coins, more than she had seen in months. "Thank you, Chief," she said, bowing deeply. "May the gods bless you abundantly." Chief Obi smiled, but behind his warm expression lay a sinister plan. The dark deity, ever hungry, had demanded something more this time. Not just the destinies of the villagers, but a pure, untainted soul, a life just beginning. "Chima. You are a strong woman, Chika," Chief Obi continued, his tone gentle, disarming. "Your son deserves the best. I will help you raise him, ensure he has an education, a future. All I ask is that you trust me. Let me take him under my wing, guide him as my own." Chika, overwhelmed by his generosity, hesitated. Her instincts told her something was off, but the desperation of her situation clouded her judgment. Could she really refuse the help of the most powerful man in the village? Chief Obi's plan was set in motion. He would convince Chika to hand over her son, framing it as an act of charity, a chance to secure Chima's future. But in truth, the child would be taken to the sacred forest, offered as a sacrifice to the deity that had granted Obi his wealth and power. The widow, blinded by her hopes for a better life, did not see the trap closing around her. And as Chief Obi left her home, his gift accepted and his promises believed, the dark deity stirred, eager to claim its prize. But little did Chief Obi know, the strength of a mother's love and the will of the gods had plans of their own. Chika's struggle was only beginning, and the fate of her child would awaken a power greater than anything he could control. The night was heavy, cloaked in a silence so profound it felt as though the earth itself held its breath. Above, the moon hung low and ominous, its usual silver glow replaced by an unsettling shade of red, a color that bled across the heavens, casting the world below in an eerie, otherworldly hue. The villagers slept soundly, their dreams untouched by the horrors that unfolded in the distance. Far from the safety of the village, in the depth of the sacred forest, Chief Obi moved with purpose. The towering trees loomed like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches twisting and clawing at the crimson sky. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and every step he took seemed to echo unnaturally, as though the forest itself was alive, watching, waiting. In his arms, swaddled in a soft cloth, was the tiny form of Chima. The baby stirred but did not cry, his innocence a stark contrast to the darkness that surrounded him. Chief Obi's expression was one of grim determination, his lips moving in rhythmic whispers. The incantations flowed from his mouth in a language older than time, a guttural, haunting chant that seemed to blend with the rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an unseen owl. With each word, the forest responded. Shadows deepened, shapes flickered at the edges of perception, and the wind howled in unnatural bursts, as if it, too, were part of the ritual. The blood-red moon seemed to pulse, growing brighter with every step he took toward the heart of the forest, where an ancient clearing lay hidden, a place no villager dared to tread. The clearing was a circle of unnatural perfection, the ground bare and blackened as though scorched by fires long extinguished. At its center stood a stone altar, crude and worn, its surface stained with marks that spoke of rituals past. Surrounding it were carvings of twisted faces and animal forms, their eyes hollow, their expressions frozen in eternal torment. Chief Obi approached the altar, his chants growing louder, more urgent. The deity was near, he could feel its presence in the shivering air, in the growing weight that pressed on his chest. The baby stirred again, a small, helpless whimper escaping his lips. Tonight, Chief Obi intoned, his voice rising above the wind, I fulfill my vow. By this pure soul, I honor our pact. Accept this offering and strengthen my power. As he laid the baby on the cold, unforgiving stone, the forest seemed to come alive. The trees swayed without wind, their branches reaching toward the sky as if in supplication. The shadows grew bolder, creeping closer to the altar, and the ground beneath trembled with an unholy energy. Chief Obi raised his arms, his voice now a roar, calling out the name of the deity, a sound that cracked through the night like thunder. The clearing was awash in crimson light, the moon above pulsing in time with the incantations. The deity was coming. But as the ritual neared its climax, an unexpected force stirred in the darkness. Unbeknownst to Chief Obi, the gods had sent a watcher, and the forest itself was preparing to intervene. This was no ordinary night, and the child, though helpless in the moment, carried a destiny that even the dark deity could not foresee. The clearing, bathed in the sinister glow of the blood-red moon, was now a scene of unholy preparation. Chief Obi stood before the stone altar, his face drenched in sweat, his voice echoing with dark invocations. On the altar sat a pounding mortar, an ancient, crude vessel carved from ebony wood, its surface marked with symbols too terrible to describe. In the mortar lay Chima, bound tightly in a cloth of red and black, the colors of blood and darkness. The fabric, coarse and ceremonial, clung to his tiny body as though it, too, was alive, a part of the ritual. The baby squirmed faintly, his whimpers barely audible against the oppressive weight of the forest silence. Chief Obi raised a hand, holding a staff carved from the bone of an unknown beast, its tip adorned with feathers and the teeth of predators. He struck the staff against the ground, each thud reverberating through the air like a heartbeat, summoning the being he had long worshipped in secret. The forest answered. The shadows that had crept closer began to twist and writhe, converging on the altar like streams of dark water. The air grew heavy with the stench of sulfur and decay, a smell so potent it made the trees themselves seem to recoil. Then, from the shadows, it began to emerge. At first, it was smoke, thick, black tendrils that coiled and rose like living serpents. The smoke poured above the altar, swelling into a monstrous form that defied the logic of the human mind. The deity was a grotesque figure, neither fully solid nor entirely formless. Its body, if it could be called that, shifted constantly, one moment a mass of writhing limbs, the next a towering silhouette cloaked in shadow. Its face, if it had a face, was a horror of contradictions, glowing eyes that burned like twin suns peered out from a void where a mouth should have been, and its head was adorned with twisting horns that seemed to grow and shrink with every breath it took. From its smoky body came an unearthly hum, a sound that vibrated deep within the chest, filling the air with dread. The deity's voice echoed, not from its form but from the very forest around them, the words resonating like the growl of a thunderstorm.
You call me again, mortal? Have you brought what I require?
Chief Obi fell to his knees, his head bowed low. Yes, great one, he said, his voice trembling but resolute. The pure soul is here, as you commanded. The deity leaned closer, its smoky form enveloping the mortar, tendrils of shadow caressing the baby as if inspecting its offering. The child's cries grew louder, more desperate, as though even in his innocence he could sense the malevolence that surrounded him. For a moment, the world seemed to hold still, the deity's presence overwhelming everything else. The trees no longer swayed, the wind ceased, even the moon's light seemed to dim. Then, with a deafening roar, the deity's form expanded, its hunger palpable. The ritual was at its peak. The pounding mortar, the blood-red moon, the helpless child, all were pieces of a horrifying puzzle coming together. But just as the deity began to envelop the baby fully, a ripple of resistance stirred in the clearing, faint but undeniable. Unseen forces, ancient and powerful, were watching, and the balance Chief Obi had so carelessly disrupted was beginning to shift. What he had intended as a moment of triumph was on the verge of becoming something far more unpredictable. Among the villagers, there had always been whispers about Chief Obi, rumors that his wealth was not of natural means, that his generosity masked something far darker. While most dismissed such talk, a group of sharp-eyed youths had been paying close attention. They noticed how the chief avoided direct answers, how his eyes darted nervously when questioned, and how his offerings always seemed to bring more despair than relief. Led by Emeka, a bold and determined young man, the group had been secretly following Chief Obi since his arrival. They hid in the shadows, blending into the dense forest as they trailed him through the twisting paths leading to the sacred clearing. When they saw him carrying the baby swaddled in red and black, their suspicions turned to horror. Emeka clenched his fists, his heart pounded. "It's worse than we imagined," he whispered to the others. From their hiding spot among the trees, the youth watched in stunned silence as the ritual began. The chants, the pounding mortar, the grotesque deity emerging from the smoke, it was a sight none of them would ever forget. But rather than freeze in fear, they were filled with a surge of courage. Emeka turned to the group, his voice low but firm. "If we don't stop this, the village will never recover. Are you with me?" The others nodded, their faces set with determination. As Chief Obi raised his staff for the final invocation, a sharp cry pierced the air. "Stop this madness." Emeka's voice rang out, strong and unyielding. The youths burst into the clearing, torches blazing and weapons raised. The deity's smoky form recoiled, its glowing eyes narrowing at the unexpected interruption. Chief Obi whipped around, his face a mask of panic. "What are you doing here?" he bellowed, his voice cracking with fear. "Leave at once. This is not your concern." But the youths were undeterred. Joy stepped forward, her torch held high, its flame casting defiant shadows across her face. "You've deceived us long enough, Chief. We see you for what you truly are, a thief of destinies and a servant of evil." The deity let out an ear-splitting roar, its form swelling with fury.
"Mortal, you have brought disturbance to my domain,"
its voice shaking the ground. Chief Obi fell to his knees, trembling. "Great One, forgive me. They are fools. I did not invite them." The youths formed a protective circle around the altar, Emeka at the center, his hands reaching for the baby. "We won't let you take him," he said, his voice steady despite the terror clawing at his heart. The deity lashed out, tendrils of smoke snaking toward the youths. But they held their ground, shouting prayers and invocations of their own, calling upon the gods of light and justice. The forest seemed to respond to their cries, the wind howled, the trees groaned, and the blood-red moon began to dim. Chief Obi, realizing his ritual was failing, scrambled to flee. He dropped his staff and turned toward the forest edge, but the ground beneath him shifted as though alive, roots twisting around his ankles. He stumbled and fell, his cries of desperation swallowed by the chaos. The deity, enraged by the interruption and the chief's cowardice, turned its wrath on Obie.
"You have failed me, mortal. You will pay the price."
As the smoky form lunged toward Chief Obi, Emeka seized the moment. He snatched Chima from the mortar and wrapped him tightly in his arms. "Run," he shouted to the others. The youths retreated, their torches lighting the way as they fled through the forest. Behind them, the clearing erupted in chaos, the deity's roars of fury mingled with Chief Obi's desperate screams as the darkness consumed him. Though their hearts pounded with fear, the youths did not stop until they were safely back in the village, where the first rays of dawn began to break through the sky. They had saved the baby, but the cost of their bravery was yet to unfold. The villagers would soon learn the truth about Chief Obi and the horrors hidden within the sacred forest. The sacred forest echoed with the deity's unearthly roars, a sound that made the very ground tremble. Chief Obi, sprawled on the cold earth, clawed at the roots entangling his legs. His once commanding voice was now a pitiful whimper. "Great One, please, have mercy. I will bring you another offering," he cried, his words barely coherent amidst his sobs. The deity loomed above him, its shifting form pulsating with fury.
"You have failed me, mortal. You allowed the offering to escape. You invited chaos into my domain."
Chief Obi begged and groaned, his face contorted in terror. But the deity was unmoved. Its smoky tendrils wrapped around him, lifting him off the ground. The weight of his betrayal was heavy, and now the dark being sought retribution. With a low, guttural growl, the deity began to siphon Chief Obi's life force. The once vibrant man, whose wealth and power had been the envy of all, began to wither before the unseen forces of the forest. His skin grew pale and brittle, his eyes sunken and hollow. His once proud stature shrunk as his vitality drained into the darkness. The deity's laughter filled the forest, mocking and terrible. The lavish mansions, businesses, and riches Chief Obi had acquired began to crumble in distant echoes. His wealth, tied to the pact, vanished like mist in the morning sun, leaving nothing but emptiness where it had once stood. When dawn broke, a frail and broken Chief Obi stumbled out of the forest, his appearance so unrecognizable that the villagers gasped in shock. His fine robes were tattered, his body, once strong, was gaunt and hunched. He muttered to himself, his words a jumble of pleas and incoherent ramblings. The villagers gathered, their faces a mixture of fear and anger. The brave youths who had witnessed the ritual recounted the horrors of the previous night, exposing Chief Obi's dark deeds. The village elder, his voice steady despite the tumult, declared judgment. "Chief Obi," the elder said, his tone filled with quiet wrath, "you have brought darkness upon us. You have betrayed your people, stolen their destinies, and defiled the sacred forest. You are no longer welcome here. Leave this village, and may the gods deal with you as they see fit." The villagers watched as Obi, now a shadow of his former self, was escorted out of the village. His cries for mercy fell on deaf ears, and his attempts to explain himself were met with stony silence. Banished and alone, he wandered aimlessly into the forest, his mind fractured by guilt and fear. As he disappeared into the trees, the villagers felt a strange mix of emotions. Fear lingered from the dark truths they had uncovered, but relief also washed over them. The man who had cast a long shadow over their lives was gone, and with him, the grip of his dark pact. In the days that followed, the village began to heal. The youths who had saved Chima were hailed as heroes, their bravery inspiring hope among the people. And though the memory of Chief Obi's downfall remained as a cautionary tale, the villagers found strength in their unity, vowing never again to place blind trust in the hands of one man. Far away, deep within the forest, Chief Obi's screams echoed faintly before fading into silence. His name became a warning for generations to come, a reminder that the pursuit of power at the expense of others could only lead to ruin. With Chief Obi gone and the dark deity no longer feeding on their lives, the village began to stir with a sense of renewal. The air, once heavy and oppressive, now felt lighter. Crops that had withered began to sprout green shoots, and the laughter of children returned to the dusty parts of the village. The villagers, long weighed down by misfortune and despair, started to notice subtle changes. The potter's hands, once stiff and clumsy, molded clay with newfound precision. The farmer whose fields had been barren watched in awe as his crops flourished. The tailor's needle, long slowed by trembling hands, now danced with grace. Among these signs of restoration was Chika, whose joy seemed to radiate like the sun. Her baby boy, Chima, grew strong and healthy, his giggles filling their small hut with warmth. The child, whose life had been so precariously close to darkness, became a symbol of hope for the entire village. Chima's presence seemed almost magical. People claimed that touching his tiny hands brought them courage, and his innocent smile was enough to lift the heaviest of hearts. As the years passed, the boy grew into a bright, kind-hearted young man, quick to help others and wise beyond his years. Chika, who had known only struggle and loss, now found purpose in watching her son thrive. She became a storyteller, sharing the tale of Chima's rescue with anyone who would listen, reminding the villagers of the bravery that saved him and the dangers of blind trust. But even as the village healed, a shadow lingered, a reminder of the cost of greed and wickedness. On certain nights, when the moon hung low and the winds whispered through the trees, a lone figure could be seen wandering the outskirts of the village. It was Chief Obi, his once proud form now hunched and frail. His tattered robes dragged behind him as he muttered incoherent phrases, his eyes wide and vacant. The villagers watched from a distance, their fear tempered by pity. He would appear near the river, his hands clawing at the air as if trying to grasp the wealth he had lost. Some claimed they heard him weeping, others said he laughed, a hollow, chilling sound. But no one dared approach him, for they knew he was a living warning from the gods. Chika often told her son the story of Chief Obi's rise and fall, ensuring that he understood its lesson. Wealth gained through wickedness will always come at a great cost, she would say, her voice firm but gentle. Honor and kindness are the true riches of life. And so, the village carried on, bound by a shared understanding of the dangers of greed and the strength found in unity. Chima grew into a leader who championed fairness and compassion, ensuring that his people never forgot the lessons of the past. Meanwhile, Chief Obi wandered endlessly, a tragic figure whose madness served as a haunting reminder. The villagers whispered his name in cautionary tales, teaching their children to seek goodness above all else, lest they, too, suffer his fate. In the end, the village thrived not because of the wealth stolen from them, but because of the resilience, courage, and hope that bound them together.